It is philosophically well known that it is not scientists who seek the truth, but rather the truth seeks them. The energy bubble is the smallest amount of energy that is capable of interacting with matter. It formed from superstrings sequentially before the end of the first second of the Big Bang. According to the sequence of their origins, the bubbles are the graviton, the magnon, then the gluon, and the boson. And keep in mind that the gluon bubble is the Gilliam bubble. As for the physical bubbles, they are bubbles that do not contain any energy, because they were formed from strings that are energetically opposite, and so they cancelled each other. Therefore, the physical bubbles are energy thirsty, and this is what enabled them to have a host property. Physical bubbles are inhabited by various types of energy bubbles. This is represented by the 4 types of energy, which gives them physical properties such as weight, volume, charge, and movement. This process of creating matter out of nothing is done according to the first law of the bubbles theory, which governs the relationship between matter and energy starting from the first instance of their formation during the first second of the Big Bang until they return to being superstrings in the next Big Bang. The first law of the bubbles theory: the host physical bubble has the capacity to host various energy bubbles, but this capacity is limited. E is the sum of energy bubbles that a physical bubble can host. EGR is the amount of charged graviton bubbles. EMA is the amount of charged magnon bubbles. EGL is the amount of charged gluon or Gilliam bubbles. EBO is the amount of charged boson bubbles. This law might not be clear at the beginning, but later on we will have a better understanding of it. Why does air rise to the top? Why does its density and weight decrease? And why does it expand? In the bubbles theory, forcibly charging the air with thermal energy causes the expulsion of other forms of energy. So the substance gives up some graviton bubbles, thus its weight is reduced. Let's think about why does an electron fractionalize? What is the mechanism behind the formation of light waves? And why does an electron orbit around the nucleus? When a material receives more energy, its stability is at risk. But the presence of an electron around the nucleus and its jumps between the orbit with a whirlwind-like movement, moving back and forth, explains the mechanism by which this energy that infiltrates and threatens the stability of the structure of matter is observed, with the aim of getting rid of this intrusive energy. And this is what fractionalization is. The entering process of the energy bubble into the physical particle, electron, is called incorporation. Scientists gave the name photon to this energy bubble. The energy which resulted from the electron fragmentation is a non-material bubble that has no weight nor mass. Now we might be thinking, what type of bubbles will leave the magnet if we apply excessive heat to it? The magnet will gradually lose magnon bubbles as it warms up. Here's a question for smart people. If we charge matter with gravitons, what type of bubbles will the matter expel from it? Then if we decompress it, why does it absorb the heat of everything that surrounds it? When we compress the material, we charge it with gravitons, which causes the expulsion of heat bubbles. And upon decompression, the material absorbs the heat that was expelled from the surrounding medium. And yes, all cooling devices work according to the first law of the bubbles theory. Why do metals expand with heat, and why do they get fused if we continue heating them? When the heat bubbles expel the charge bubbles or the magnons, the charge of electrons and protons weakens, and the physical components of the atom diverge. Why can't we reverse the roles of iron and copper in a generator by making the core from copper and the coils from iron? Check out our video on the magnum bubble. The link is in the video's description. The answer to all of these questions and many others is the first law of the bubbles theory. We find that the term E-metabolism is appropriate for all the energy processes governed by the first law of the bubbles theory. The first atom of an element formed in the universe was the hydrogen atom. It is a primitive, immature atom that was used only as fuel for the star's furnaces. This hydrogen, which is found throughout the universe, is present in the form of plasma. This is different from hydrogen molecules. There is no connection between the electron and the proton of this hydrogen. Instead, it is more of an interconnected cloud that gives it a high electrical and radiative conductivity. This state can be found in stars, and it is called the hydrogen ion. It is a primitive atom because it does not contain a neutron and does not have its own electron, which made scientists call it protium. Is this the reason why Bohr's equations can only explain the spectrum of the hydrogen atom? The mature and fusible hydrogen atom, which is considered to be the cosmic raw material from which Mendeleev's table got filled with elements, is deuterium. This mature atom also has a neutron and a proton spinning around it. This is the atom which merges to form a helium atom and then the rest of the elements. The process of keeping two positive protons close together requires an extraordinary force that opposes the strength of their repulsion. Think a little about how much force you need to keep two mutually exclusive magnets close together. A unipolar bubble, like graviton bubble, cannot do that. A bipolar bubble, magnon, also fails to do that. In practice, this can only be done with a tripolar force. Only the three poles of gluon are able to accomplish this task. Scientists refer to them as colors. We conclude so far that the first law of the bubbles theory governs all activities of the energy bubbles present in the materials, since the process of embodying the energy in the material in the first second, then the rest of the elements were subsequently formed according to the second law of the bubbles theory, or fusion energy law. E gluon equals EP times N. E gluon, the total gluon energy of the element, EP, is the energy required to add one proton to the nucleus, and this is one of the constants of the universe. And N is the number of protons in the element. The magnum bubble overcomes the graviton bubble, since a small magnet can counteract gravity and keep a piece of metal suspended despite its weight. Likewise, the gluon bubble overcomes the magnum bipolar bubble, suppressing its repulsive force to keep the protons attached to the nucleus. So the sun only requires enough energy to charge the nucleus of an atom with enough gluons to add a new proton in order for matter to evolve, generating a new element. The number of protons that a nuclei can have is directly proportional with the amount of gluons it's charged with. But when a material is cooked in the stars, it always happens that a proportion of the atoms of the resulting element are charged with an amount of gluons that is slightly below the threshold required for the inclusion of another proton. Then radioactive isotopes appear in this case, as they are the same element, but they contain extra gluons in their nuclei that they get rid of over the years to stabilize. These radioactive isotopes are ideal for using the energy of their gluons by means of a nuclear fission, because due to their instability, they easily split into two other elements, expelling the excess gluons at once to burn Hiroshima and eliminate Nagasaki from existence.